I know everyone wants to see my next verses. It is literally the next video being produced. But with the election coming up in Halloween, I decided to do some fun stuff before returning to the classic formats. This time, I get to talk about one of my favorite movies growing up, and still one of my favorite movies to this day, the original Ghostbusters. Let's examine the subtext of this movie and discuss something I absolutely love and something kind of crappy. Let's look at the good and the bad with Ghostbusters. This is an aspect I absolutely love about Ghostbusters. Throughout the movie, we see the team in various incarnations looking at the supernatural. These are largely just ghosts used for mostly comedic effect.
Batman, what happened? Are you okay? He slimed me.
But there are also supernatural elements that come from mythology.
Something terrible is about to enter our world, and this building is obviously the door. The architect's name was Ivo Shandor. I found it in Tobin's Spirit Guide.
Granted, it's a made-up mythology for this movie, but what Gozer actually represents is stated a few times in the movie.
Or you could accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr. Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
That's right. Gozer in this movie is actually a stand-in for God. Not only that, he's a stand-in for the Christian God and the bringer of the biblical apocalypse.
Do you remember something in the Bible about the last days when the dead would rise from the grave?
I remember Revelation 7:12. Every ancient religion has its own myth about the end of the world.
Myth? Ray, has it ever occurred to you that maybe the reason we've been so busy lately is because the dead have been rising from the grave?
Now here's the really interesting part. How do the Ghostbusters fight these ancient evils? Do they hunt down an ancient relic like the Ajante dagger?
I got the knife! Now turn on the goddamn light!
The Colt, or Excalibur, or any other sort of item from a similar time period like most any other story would do? Do they have to find Gozer's skeleton and burn it? No, nothing like that. Instead, the Ghostbusters fight mythological creatures with items they create using science. Granted, made-up movie science, but clearly stated to be science, at least from the movie's perspective.
It's in there.
Hey. Well, that wasn't such a chore now, was it?
Why is all this important? Because to put it in much simpler terms, Ghostbusters is a movie about human beings killing gods with science. That's right, our main villain is Gozer, who is a stand-in for the Christian God and the bringer of the biblical apocalypse, and the Ghostbusters use their knowledge of science to not just kill God, but stop the apocalypse and save humanity.
The door swings both ways. We could reverse the particle flow through the gate.
How?
We'll cross the stream.
In other words, Ghostbusters is a movie about how religions will end us and only science can save us. I have to admit that's pretty cool. The entire moral lesson behind Ghostbusters is that humanity can save itself as long as it lets go of primitive ideas and embraces facts and science. That's definitely a good thing.
We have the tools, we have the talent.
It's Miller time.
I hate talking about bad ideas in this movie because it's such a great movie and even the bad ideas are written well into the structure of the movie. The issue is with Walter Peck. It has nothing to do with William Atherton's performance, who is brilliant at playing these sleazy characters you instantly dislike.
Mitch, there's something you're going to have to understand. Compared to you, most people have the IQ of a carrot. We're different than most people, Mitch. Better.
The issue is, he is a caricature of a government official. Atherton's performance is a large part of why this works. Take Atherton's performance out of the equation and look at Peck's argument.
These men are consummate snowball artists. They use sense and nerve gases to induce hallucinations. People think they're seeing ghosts.
He doesn't believe the Ghostbusters are real, which doesn't play into this, but he also believes that if they are real, they need government oversight.
I want to know more about what you do here. Frankly, there have been a lot of wild stories in the media, and we want to assess any possible environmental impact from your operation.
Think about it. The Ghostbusters is a business running on a profit motive. People call who have ghost problems, and the Ghostbusters resolve these problems for a price.
Let's talk seriously. Now, for the entrapment, we're going to have to ask you for 4 big ones, $4,000 for that.
Now, it's been seen that these supernatural creatures are capable of causing damage and harming people and probably killing people. So under the Ghostbusters model, only the rich get the luxury of living ghost-free. The poor would have to live with the creatures that could potentially kill them. The idea of government oversight seems like a very minor step in the right direction. In truth, the Ghostbusters should be considered a public good and become like the police or fire department or like healthcare, which is a whole separate debate not for this video. Venkman takes Peck's ideas and throws them all out.
You go get a court order, and I'll sue your ass for wrongful prosecution.
You can have it your way, Mr. Venkman.
Granted, Peck doesn't sell it well at all, so you end up siding with Venkman in the moment, but upon any real examination, it's clear that Ghostbusters should have some sort of government oversight and should be an agency largely run as a public service. Why should only the rich live without ghosts?
$5,000? I had no idea it'd be so much I won't pay it.
Well, that's all right. We can just put it right back in there. Thank you.
We certainly can, Dr. Venkman.
If we treat the police department like the Ghostbusters are treated here, then only the people who could pay money could have their crimes investigated. Everyone else would just have to live with it, which they still kind of do, but different discussion. Despite having a good message on the science versus religion debate, Ghostbusters also ends up being profoundly pro-capitalist to a ridiculous extreme. The idea this movie is portraying is that the government is always just a problem, and the best thing the government can do is step aside and let business run the show.
Get him out of here.
Bye.
That's good.
I'm gonna miss him.
All right. We got work to do. Now, what do you need from me?
Concerning a large part of why the government is so weak is because businesses have bought off, makes this whole argument fairly garbage. Businesses have broken the government and are out there claiming the thing they broke should be replaced by them. It's a terrible argument and definitely a bad thing.
I want this man arrested! Captain, these men are a criminal violation of the Environmental Protection Act! And this explosion is a direct result of it! Your mother!
It's worth stating that authorial intent does not mean anything in the end. Art, and honestly most anything, is about interpretation. Intent matters only insofar as if something was perhaps misstated and only shows the author's point of view. When it comes to movies, the audience's point of view means everything, and the author's means only something if they get it across. That being said, you have to wonder if the authors knew these messages would be in the movie. So let's look into that. Screenwriter Dan Aykroyd is a well-documented believer in parapsychology.
One day I read an article on quantum physics and parapsychology, and I thought, wouldn't it be great to marry this concept in a fantasy that there could actually be equipment that would enable one to, entrap a phantom spirit.
This undoubtedly played a role in his contributions to the screenplay. His father even wrote a book about it, A History of Ghosts by Peter H. Aykroyd. Harold Ramis grew up Jewish. In adulthood, there were conflicting reports that he either wasn't religious whatsoever or was Buddhist. While Aykroyd's interest in the occult informed this movie, it seems clear that Ramis' stance on religion was one of the other factors that gave way towards this movie's stance. Ramis' ideas were made more apparent when he talked about his 2010 film, Year One, but it seems fairly clear this would apply to Ghostbusters as well. He said, post 9/11, religious differences were tearing the world apart. Every religion preaches tolerance, yet people were destroying one another wholesale. I started thinking, you can't attack Christianity, Islam, or Judaism without alienating people. But nobody cares if you go after a dead pagan religion. It seems clear, if you combine these ideas from both the screenwriters, it's very easy to see how many ideas about religion and science were clearly not accidental. But what about the ideas about capitalism? Well, according to reports, the idea for Ghostbusters came from a meeting between Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ivan Reitman. Reitman discusses how he feels his libertarian philosophy informed the movie. The fact that the movie was also made in the 80s under the flag of Reaganism probably didn't help. So it seems fairly likely all these aspects did have authorial intent behind them. Now, did each author know how the ideas would combine to make the movie what it is? Probably not, but the movie was made.
Ray, when someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes!
So what does this mean for Ghostbusters? Is it a good movie or a bad movie? Well, it's actually a great movie. Still one of my all-time favorites. Sure, I don't agree with every element of the movie, but if I hold movies to that standard, I'll never like anything. Even with its flaws, Ghostbusters is so much fun with great performances, great jokes, great effects, great soundtrack, and just a great movie.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass!
They think order and chaos are somehow opposites and try to control what won't be.
Pain don't hurt.